Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to this channel and click the alert notification.
Welcome back to Creating Competitive Intelligence. I'm Dan Travis, and today I want to look at competitive intelligence as what's called a psychotechnology. And I want to dive straight in by looking at several different kinds of response that players have when they're competing. And I'm going to look at the negative, two negative responses. And one is what we call justice mode, and the other is checking out. Both of these are ways that players react in a tennis match. Usually the outcome, or I say usually, almost certainly the outcome, if they're in one of these two modes, is that they're going to lose. Justice mode will be called negative. Checking out is positive. Might sound a bit odd, a positive way of losing a match, but you'll see what I mean when I come to that in a minute. So in terms of justice mode, players will go, "Oh, it's happening again." It normally is. You can see it, for example, when there's a bad line call on your opponent's side. "Oh, I'm going to lose because they're making bad line calls. Here we go again." Or it might be to do with one of the shots. The backhand gets a bad time in tennis, so I've missed my backhand again. Here we go again. And justice mode is the kind of the dominant mode then for them in the match, and can be calm. It's very destructive. What can we say about justice mode? I mean, have a look at it again, and when you're looking at matches and you're watching your players, they'll often go into this kind of negative way of looking at it, quite very, very fatalistic way of approaching a tennis match or dealing with pressure. That's a better way of putting it. So the justice mode is a bad way of dealing with the pressure of a tennis match. What about checking out? Checking out is more. I find it this is fascinating because there's a lot I can teach you about the problems of players checking out. You may have experienced it yourself. I'd argue it's a response to anxiety. You know, there's always a sense of relief when players check out of a match, and they'll go, "Oh, it's not my day today. Okay, you know, I've done my best. My coach is going to be happy with the way I'm playing at the moment. You know, I'm doing. And next time, I'm really going to nail down." That's why I call it positive. Right, you see a player checking out as opposed to on justice mode, and you can see the difference. You know, you can see why I would call one negative and one positive. Because checking out, whoa, yeah, look, that's why it's so destructive. Because they'll come off the court and go, "I did my best." No, yes, you did. It was really good. And I go, "Yeah, I've got to focus on this, focus on that." Really, a lot of the time, I suggest that they're not able to deal with anxiety because the anxiety is so intense. They check out the match. They're not prepared to be patient to try and win. So the positive is ultimately really a negative. But I would encourage you to look out for if you're a player yourself, look out for this checking out. Can be done before the match starts. Very interesting when you're talking to players. They talk themselves out of the win, but they're going to try their best. Watch that phrase. I'm going to try my best. Okay, so on to the big bad topic. My favourite topic in tennis, or one of my favourite introductions to competitive intelligence. So we can really take kind of a snapshot of what cognitive science and psychology bring to the table when we are facing, I don't know, justice mode on the court or checking out. What's the cognitive process that happens? Okay, so I'm going to introduce you to two things, and I'm going to do separate lectures on both of these, and they're called heuristics. There's several of them. Okay, heuristics is basically a shortcut. They're a very, very important part of being human, really. It's the way we deal with uncertainty and problems. We kind of got a shortcut. We use our memory, we reference experience, we calculate, we rationalise, all those good things that allow us to negotiate problems and challenges. And these are heuristics. Just for now, I'm going to use my favourite, the representative heuristic. There it is. And we'll go for the availability heuristic. There's so much I can teach you about these. So here's what happens. Something happens, and we'll interpret this, and we'll use these heuristics. Okay. The representative heuristic. The amount of times people come to me and say, "Dan, have you seen the film Moneyball?" And I'm going, "Yeah, I have, about 70 times." Moneyball, he's Benjamin Bean, the hero, the Brad Pitt character. This is a beautiful example of the representative heuristic in Hollywood. Heuristics in Hollywood. So that what Bean does with the team is they get the system that's been developed for actually calculating the true efficacy of a player, baseball. Members of a baseball team. So they're going to take, if you recall, they're all sitting there in that big board meeting, and they've got the scouts there, and they're insisting that, well, this guy, he's been knocking it out of the park, and he's great for that reason, and he's expensive for that reason. He's that guy. This team wants him. So that's, and so on and so on. And what they're using is like what this guy represents in terms of the way he looks, his status, the way other people view him, and so on. All these representative characteristics. That is what makes him someone we want. Benjamin Bean's going, no. He's challenging this representative heuristic because, look, the representative heuristic is really useful. Okay, it's normally a pretty good guide if someone, particularly assessing competence and so on. All these heuristics are they're vital. But when it starts to go wrong, they can work against you. That's my simple point, and that's an example of it. So rather than what the player looks like or what his status is, it's we need to be looking really at what how effective is it. So really, you're kind of you're looking at assumptions here. But in a tennis match, representative heuristic in a tennis match. Look, if your opponent hits a winner, we think, oh right, I've played people who are like him. That he's hitting these winners, therefore he's going to hit more, and so on. So I've got to do X, Y, Z. Okay, so he's a good player because of this. And of course, then we make the judgment that he's better than me because he represents something better than I am. Now, that's how it's kind of working in a tennis ball. What I'm doing here is looking at that moment. Let's say we just lost a point. Okay, that's all. That's 2 seconds. This happens really quickly. I'm going to come back to that in a second. So, the availability heuristic. Oh, they're great, aren't they? This one, and it's like an in-joke in philosophy, and some of the people I work with, we do have great fun with the availability heuristic. I don't know if you, I remember certain of my elders when I was young, so as a 10-year-old, they would go, and here's an example of it. If you leave that door unlocked, I can easily imagine that someone can come in round the back and break into the house, and they can take that, they can take your phone, and they can take all the whatever from the house, and then they can leave. I can easily imagine that can happen. This is an example of the availability heuristic. Is that the way it works is we pick up on what's available to us from a memory, and obviously the obvious, the easy memories and examples are something we use to negotiate problems. It sounds so obvious that it almost seems trivial. The problem is when it goes wrong. So when Grandma says, I can easily imagine it happening, what she seems to mean, or she can fall into the following trap, is that increases the probability of it happening, and it doesn't. Okay, just because you can easily imagine it happening, or quickly imagine it happening, doesn't increase the probability of it occurring. That's what Grandma's saying when she goes, I can easily imagine that person coming through the door. Okay? There's so many examples of the availability heuristic, but I will be doing a separate course on these, and these two also interact. Okay, don't forget we're talking about the split second when the player misses a ball. So here we go. I'm throwing some terms at you because what I want to do is get you thinking in this way and becoming familiar with some of the terms that we use, and we can start to do that. Maybe if you can start to grasp these, you can always ask me questions on the YouTube video, or we have the members group. But here we go. Encoding specificity refers to the way our memory works, and I will give you a very quick example. It's difficult to remember, or I'd say impossible to remember, feeling happy when you are sad. Okay? So these two work together. Very difficult to remember that moment of happiness when these two heuristics start kicking in. What memory? The way memory works is it remembers context as well as just image. So what we want to be doing is seeing memories like. That's why it's called encoding. It's got kind of codes in it that these representatives and representative availability, these heuristics will tap into. So we're kind of going in here into our memory and picking things out. Okay? Now's the time to interpret the event as bad. Okay, so this is what Stephen Vervaeke does. This is what Stephen Vervaeke does in episode 13 of Awakening from the Crisis of Meaning. Does this much better than me. I suggest you look at it because it is in relation to parasitic processing. It's a better way of doing it. But here's my attempt nonetheless. So what we have here is the first part of the cycle, where we get a feedback between the heuristics and encoding specific. So we interpret the event as bad. Oh, I missed a shot. So we go back to times. What does that represent to me? It means that I might be a bad player, it might be that they're better than me. Or it might be that he hits a winner, that's bad. That we choose various representative images, feelings, emotions that we get from encoded memory, and we do the same with the availability heuristic. We're doing the same. We're diving into here, and it's giving back those memories, and we get in this bad loop very quickly. So I can easily imagine this happening again. Therefore, what we then have is the much talked about at the moment confirmation bias. So what we're doing is we're picking out things that are happening after that bad event. So already we're interpreting that bad event. Then we're moving through into the next point, and other things start to confirm the heuristics are encoded memory. That's what we mean by confirmation. It confirms that this is something bad, and everything then becomes interpreted as bad. So the next point or the next shot, and so on. Very, very, very difficult then to get out of this. There's another thing that's happening, it's called reciprocal narrowing. Again, John Vervaeke is talking about that in episode 13 of Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. Basically, the problem is you've got your agency and freedom and thinking starts to constrict, hence reciprocal narrowing. We become much less flexible. What we do with the availability heuristic and representative heuristic is that the probability of badness occurring is higher. In fact, in tennis players, it becomes almost total. And that leads to anxiety. So there, with reciprocal narrowing, I get less cognitive ability. So it starts to narrow down and I'm more anxious, and I'm going to make my cognitive ability, I'm less able to solve problems because I'm inflexible, and I make more mistakes and fail. This is feeding into this. And this is feeding into confirmation bias. So the more mistakes I make, the more confirmation bias kicks in. Well, it's not working, it becomes dominant. Then we get, as John Vervaeke says, I'm doomed, and I love that word. Right back into encoding spare, right? So you interpret it as bad. You are in constant danger, cognitive danger, of this occurring. Normally, at this phase, neutral or good. Yeah, so neutral or good, that's fine. Heuristics do their job, it's a neutral plot. When it's interpreted as bad, or if we're in justice mode, we can look. There's lots of these. It doesn't have to just be bad. It can be unfair. Anger is another one, right? This system kicks in, and we're going to be looking at the reciprocal narrowing aspect. We're going to be looking at all of these. It's the inflexibility, I'd say, that is probably most salient from our point of view. We need to be aware of what happens. The cognitive, it's a lovely word, term, cognitive suicide. But it's this inflexibility and this reciprocal narrowing, where we're less, our agency decreases, we're less flexible and we're less free. Okay? All of this circle drives us down, and it happens, or it can happen, like that. So I'm going to extend this one out a little bit more. So we call this parasitic processing. So the whole of this process is parasitic. Just want to have a quick look at how we're going to deal with this, and how we're going to deal with this in this course and with competitive intelligence. Okay. So I can't win. Change of narrative. So the error here is opponent hits winner. At the heart of this, parasitic processing that we've just looked at. So that system there that I've just touched on is called parasitic processing. So we want to look at how we deal with that. So here's the sequence of events, how it would look like maybe in the mind of a tennis player. This is what parasitic processing will do. The opponent hits, that's the event, so the error opponent hits a winner. Then we get loss of flexibility in thinking. We get, because of parasitic processing here, I can't win. Interesting, we get a change of narrative. I've done quite a lot of work on that. Okay, so the story people are telling themselves about who they are or what the match is, what the situation is, changes. So we get a different narrative. And that leads to, I can't win. And we're stuck in this loop for the rest of the match, possibly longer. That's roughly what happens in parasitic processing. So this is what we want to do. It's no good really telling people to don't change your narrative or be positive, because it's already happened, right? That split-second process. We need something else. We need something else to intervene other than simple positive thinking or looking at symptoms that we're going to look at later. So what do? We want to send missiles in. We want to attack this here, to attack that one there. This is the psychotechnologies we're using to kind of really get into parasitic processing. We're going to discuss these throughout the course. Boom, and whack that one in there. Okay, right? This is the psychotechnology attacks this parasitic processing, but it does it by working off the court, on the court. This is the flow that I'm talking about. We're constantly at threat of this happening. Okay, and it needs to be dealt with continually. Might be on a different level, but this is, you know, we are doomed really if we can't do it. Look, we can't do it by saying, you know, it's like telling a drunk person to stop being drunk. Too late. But big problems with a lot of psychology. It tends to deal with something that's too late, rather than going in early at the problem, and that can be done. That's brilliant. You're gonna love this part of the course. These interventions, they're called the psychotechnologies. So they're there, for example, to stop parasitic processing. That's not all that the psychotechnologies are going to do. There's lots of them. There are probably as many psychotechnologies as there are heuristics to deal with, but that's where we get this flow. We've got to do this on the court, on the practice court, and off the court, and it's continual. We're doing this all the time. So then, to conclude, what we're looking at doing is creating this upward spiral of performance where we're dealing with these technologies so that we can flow, we can move up, we can become better, we can grow as competitors. We can avoid parasitic processing. Well, look, we can't really avoid it, but we can mitigate the effects it has on flow. That's probably a good way of putting it. There are lots, as I said, there's lots of these technologies, the psychotechnologies. So one of them is the games that Sterling Strickland's invented. They're brilliant. Oh, you'll love them. They're probably the biggest guided missile into this, the parasitic processing sequences that we have to date. That's the latest psychotechnology. We're looking at patience and flexibility, two key concepts to competitive intelligence. So a temporary definition of psychotechnology is competitive intelligence encourages resilience with durability and flexibility. To conclude, a psychotechnology is an intervention to stop parasitic processing, and the conclusion, I can't win. Psychotechnology needs to be used to become more effective. And in the next lecture, we're going to look at one of the two key problems that we have in tennis, that are fundamental to tennis and that we've discovered with our research into what competitive intelligence is. So thank you very much for your time, and I will see you on the next lecture.